Good morning, everyone. It's Passover morning, and I am preparing my meal for this evening, even though it will just be my mother and me in person. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Melinda Freed, and I'm the temple caterer and cooking teacher, and I love to cook, and I love to cook for you. Hey, that was some storm we had last night. Wow. Must have been about 1 a.m. Hope everything's all right with you and your families. So normally what would happen on Passover is that my mother would make her amazing homemade gefilte fish. She has cultivated a relationship with many fish experts in the Strip District over the years, and most recently with Patrick down at Woley's, and she would call and find out what they had in the way of whitefish and pike and have them fillet it for her and save the skins and the bones and the heads, and she'd make the fish broth and she'd do all of the stuff. My mother's gefilte fish is beyond compare, and you wouldn't eat the stuff in the jar after you'd had what she made, and lots of love went into it. But with everything going on with our coronavirus, that's not how we're going to do it this year. I'm going to make what I always make on the second night of Passover, which is TriColor gefilte fish. And here is the photograph for you to see how gorgeous this is. Now, this is a baked gefilte fish, but I have to go back a little bit and talk about history. All people of limited means came up with ways to stretch their food, whether it was making meatballs and adding bread and so on. Every culture has come up with a way, and one of them is some kind of a fish ball or a croquette, and that would be true with gefilte fish. Now, gefilte fish in Yiddish means stuffed fish, and you're thinking, stuffed fish? Well, there was a time when they would slit open the fish, take the meat out, get all of those bones filleted out of there, make the mixture with the eggs and the matzah meal and the onion and so on, stuff it back in the fish, and bake it or poach it, and that's how it was. Of course, we got a lot smarter, and now we just eat the stuffing rather than having to go through all that work of stuffing the fish. But if you ever wondered what that origin is, now you know. So if you never knew that gefilte fish could be baked as well as poached in a fish broth, so my mother's is a poached quenelle in a fish broth. This is going to be baked. Now you know. And this recipe is so gorgeous and so easy, you are going to be amazed. Now, where did I get this recipe? It came from a well-known Jewish cookbook author by the name of Susie Fishbein, and a lot of her books are called By Design. This one is Passover by Design. She was here in Pittsburgh a few times, and I had a ticket once, and then we had a funeral come up, and I was shopping for the meal of condolence that I was catering, and I never did get to meet her or see her demonstration, but I love, 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 love this recipe. And it's very easy. It starts with packages of gefilte fish. Did you know you could get it in a package? So this is a white fish mixture that has some eggs and onions and carrot and potato starch and seasoning in it. And you need 2 of these packages. And then for that pretty layer in the center, you need the salmon layer. And by the way, speaking of the salmon, one year there was a shortage of whitefish up and down the East Coast, and my mom couldn't get any whitefish to make gefilte fish. She made salmon gefilte fish, and it was terrific. But back to this. Where would you get a product like this? You would be able to get this at Murray Avenue Kosher for our people who are here in Pittsburgh. So it takes 2 packages, about 22 ounces of the whitefish, and 1 package of the salmon. first thing I'm going to do is take a 9-inch springform pan. And by the way, I preheated my oven to 350 degrees. You should always make sure that your oven is preheated so that you get the accurate temperature to cook whatever it is that you're making. So this is a 9-inch springform pan. The instructions say to spray, 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 and get it nice and oiled in there. And I looked at my can of olive oil spray and I said, oh, olive oil, that'll be good for Passover, but I see that it has soy lecithin in it. And so I'm not going to use that because I'm a traditional Ashkenazi Jew and I use no legumes, no soy. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pour a little bit of olive oil in my pan, just plain olive oil, and with a paper towel, I am going to make sure that the bottom and the sides of my pan are well oiled. All right. Also make sure if you're using any kind of cooking spray during Passover, make sure that not only does it not have any of the corn or soy in it if you're following those rules, but make sure that it has no flour in it, because certainly the baking sprays do, and then you would have a Passover issue with that. Okay, now that I've prepared my pan, I'm telling you this is so easy, you're going to be amazed, and it's gorgeous. I'm going to open one of the packages, and I'm going to place its entire contents into my springform pan. And make sure you have a good rubber spatula handy because you want to scrape out all of this delicious fish that is sticking to the inside of the wrapper. So that's what we're going to do here. Now, there's 3 layers, and they're distinct layers. This one is going to be just exactly the way that it comes out of the package, as will the salmon layer be that way, but the third package, we're going to add some other ingredients, which is what makes that special. Okay, let's get rid of this mess. All you're going to do is to smear that into the bottom of your springform pan. I'm using just my silicone spatula here. You could use an offset spatula, whatever you have that works for you. And just smear that in there. Oh, I can smell the onion in here, and it smells wonderful. Okay. So I have that all evenly distributed in my pan. And now I'm going to do the same thing with my layer of salmon. One year I couldn't get the salmon, so I bought a piece of salmon, fresh salmon, and I put it in my Cuisinart, and I ground it myself, and just added a little egg and onion, and that worked too. Now, when you get to the second layer, this is not as easy to do, and the reason for that is that you're now smearing one kind of mushy layer on top of another layer. But if this is the hardest thing that you have to do to get this beautiful, delicious dish prepared, I think it's well worth it. And look how much I just keep scraping and scraping more of it off of the paper. I don't want to lose any of this deliciousness. Now, the reason that I'm making this morning is because this needs to chill for several hours, and I want to make sure that it's ready, because even though it's baked, and there are some baked gefilte fish recipes out there that you would serve warm, this one is designed to be served cold with horseradish, much like the traditional gefilte fish quenelles. All right. Okay, so I've gotten that done. Just going to rinse my hands a little bit here. And now comes the top layer. So what I have here is I have some beautiful fresh dill. And I'm going to take that dill, I'm going to chop off the stems, and I'm going to finely chop the dill leaves. Ah, the smell of fresh dill. Until I have about 2 tablespoons of fresh dill. This is what's going to go into that third layer, along with some lemon juice. Alright, so you want to make sure you get this chopped up nice and fine. And here we go. And I'm adding that to my bowl, and I already had put the gefilte fish mixture in there. Next, need some lemon juice. Although Susie Fishbein, the cookbook author, recommends the juice of a whole lemon, I do not. I'm only going to put in the juice of half of a lemon, and the reason for that is my experience in making this dish over the years. Those of you who've come to the Temple Emmanuel Second Seder for the last 5-6 years know that this is what I make. I have found that it's too wet. It comes out of the oven too wet and it oozes. So I put about the juice of about half of a lemon in here, and all I'm doing is incorporating that dill, which now gives it not only some flavor, but it makes this layer look different. And so I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that on top of here. And again, I'm just going to evenly smear it all across the top for my top layer. And you can see the pieces of dill in there, and so that makes it festive looking as well. Now all that I need to do is put a piece of foil on this, and I'm going to put it on a cookie sheet. You should always do that, a sheet that has sides, please, because you don't want anything to leak in your oven, and this sometimes does that. This will go into my oven for approximately an hour. You just want to test it no differently than you would a cake to make sure that it has fully baked, that it's done inside. Don't overdo it so that it gets dry. And then when it comes out, and I may get back to you with a finished product on an addendum to this video, but you saw the photograph. How Susie presents it is she takes a piece of cucumber and hollows it out. Now you can use a melon baller, but I'm just using a regular spoon, something that all of you would have, and I'm just hollowing around where the seeds are. And then what you would do with that is just put your horseradish in there. I'll be using white horseradish tonight. Some of you use the beet horseradish, and a little wisp of dill. So this is what your plate's going to look like. You're going to slice this like a cake after you bake it and you let it chill, and that's what your plate's going to look like. So I will be getting to you in the coming hours and days with other Passover recipes. I hope to be making coconut macaroons for you. I've talked about matzah brie. I might even make matzah. I'll let you know. That way, if you want to watch that with your kids or grandkids, I can show you how to do that. And by the way, how do you like my shirt? I dug out my old Temple Emmanuel Just Say No. If you can't see what that all is, it's all kinds of chametz, all of those things that aren't kosher for Passover, like bread products. So I'm having a lot of fun here in my kitchen. I know that we're not having our Seders with our big groups of people, at least not physically there with us. Many of us are Zooming. Make the most of it. Find that silver lining in your cloud, or as my friend Rabbi Yosef Leibowitz would teach, find the tov moments. Tov, the Hebrew word for good. Find the tov moments that happen throughout your life and your day in the midst of this craziness that we're dealing with, and have a wonderful Passover. And thank you for letting me come from my kitchen to yours.